In 1952, strange circles were observed on aerial photographs in the Chelyabinsk region, Russia. No one suspected then that the ancient Arkaim was buried there, which would later become one of the world's most significant archaeological discoveries. Not only because a settlement network of hundreds of kilometers was discovered around it, but because the site was built to clearly observe 18 cosmic events. Seen as a temporary port of call for the Aryans during their long journey from their mythical homeland of Hyperborea, danger loomed over the complex the very day it was discovered. The government gives archaeologists 1 year to explore the site, and when that time runs out, they pressure scientists to vacate the site to begin building a reservoir. Then one man rebels against everyone and leads an unprecedented battle to save Arkaim. But first, let's take you back to 1987, when no one yet suspected that exploring a strange circle hidden in the steppes of Russia would lead to one of the greatest discoveries in human history. The Discovery of Arkaim. Arkaim is incredibly lucky. In the past, the territory of this exceptional archaeological site would have been wiped off the face of the earth without hesitation, as incidentally happened to many similar sites before. But with the discovery of this ancient city, there is now a law in place that mandates archaeological investigations of such sites before building structures on them. Because of the plans to create a reservoir, archaeologists were sent to the site of Arkaim to survey part of the Chelyabinsk region. They began their exploration without much enthusiasm, as they had to explore a vast area of steppe where they were not expected to make any significant discoveries. However, in this very area, there was a hidden secret. In 1952, on aerial and later space photographs, strange circles of apparent artificial origin were spotted in the steppes. Their origin remained a mystery until 1987, when the perfect opportunity was given for one such circle to be investigated, as it fell within the area of predicted inundation. Only 2 archaeologists were sent to the site, assisted by several students and pupils from a history club. In June 1987, they discovered Arkaim at the confluence of the Golyama-Karaganka and Utyaganka rivers, 5 miles north of the village of Amursky and 1 mile southeast of the village of Alexandrovskoye, in the Brodinsky district of the Chelyabinsk region. The find was named after a nearby mountain. Then Arkaim, barely discovered, faced one of its greatest challenges. The government granted only 1 year for excavation and study of the city, after which it would be obliterated forever. In their first report, the archaeologists described Arkaim as well preserved, with 2 circles serving as fortifications, 2 residential circles, outer and inner, and a central part of the city. The diameter of the outer wall was about 492 feet, and the width of the base was 16 feet 5 inches. The wall was constructed of timber posts 9 feet by 13 feet, filled with adobe and an addition of lime. The outer wall of Arkaim was faced with adobe bricks starting from the bottom of a ditch between 4 feet to 6 feet 6 inches deep, and the whole height of the wall was no less than 11 feet 5 inches. The inner wall had a diameter of 275 feet and a thickness of 9 feet to 13 feet. It was not as massive as the outer wall, but it was taller. The town consisted of 60 large houses, symmetrically arranged. Each of them had a blacksmith's workshop, a cellar storage, and living quarters with a well and sewerage. The 4 streets also had sewers and water wells covered with wooden paving. The fortress walls also served as upper streets for pedestrians and carts. This so well-preserved ancient city in Russia, which contained more mysteries than the Egyptian pyramids, still remained unsolved, and the battle with the passing of time seemed almost lost. The government began pressing archaeologists to finish their work because the new reservoir project had to be completed on time. All seemed already lost when one man started a fierce fight to preserve this unique monument of ancient history. The head of the Ural archaeological expedition, Professor Gennady Zdanovich, traveled to Moscow to try to stop the construction of the nearly completed dam on the Golyama-Karaganka River. He held a number of meetings with influential scientists and directors of important institutions, finally finding support from the director of the Hermitage. Subsequently, other prominent scientists joined him. These efforts led to widespread public support and growing media interest, which greatly increased pressure on the government. And the miracle did not come late. The construction of the dam was stopped. The authorities agreed to halt the project, recognizing the cultural and historical value of Arkaim to Russia and the world. It was declared a historical and archaeological monument, guaranteeing its preservation and protection forever. Thus, it was not only saved from obliteration, but also became one of the most significant archaeological sites in Russia, attracting researchers and tourists from all over the world. Saving the site, however, will lead to one of the most valuable discoveries in human history: the mysterious Land of Cities. Once the crisis of the rescue of Arkaim has been overcome, a new and even stronger chapter of its history follows, one that will propel it to the top of the rankings of the greatest ancient discoveries. In the second half of the 20th century, the scientific community often argued over the location of the ancestral home of the Indo-Europeans. It is undisputed that Europeans, as well as the peoples of India, Persia, and parts of Asia, share common ancestors known as Proto-Indo-Europeans or Aryans. However, after the Second World War, the term Aryans was avoided in scholarly circles because of its associations with Hitler and his theory of the Aryan race. Countless expeditions were organized, archaeological excavations were carried out, ancient chronicles and legends were studied, and scientists hoped to discover where the Aryans lived. And so, one day, their eyes rest on Arkaim. Archaeologists and researchers flocking to the site uncover an entire complex of fortified settlements. Professor Gennady Zdanovich calls them the Land of Cities. This region is located on the eastern slopes of the Ural Mountains and encompasses 20 complexes spread over an area of 248 miles from north to south and 93 miles from west to east. All these fortified settlements existed simultaneously, the distance between them being about 31 to 43 miles. The discovery of Arkaim and the surrounding complexes became a worldwide sensation. The newly discovered city has been dated as a contemporary of the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge, being located at the same latitude as the latter. The age of the ancient city is estimated at 3,800 to 4,000 years. However, no one was prepared for the discovery that Konstantin Bystryshkin would make. It will present Arkaim in a completely different, and everything learned about it up to this point will change radically. Not only a city, but also an observatory. After scientists discover that Arkaim is actually something many times larger than they first imagined, they suddenly have to consider the hypothesis that the city and its ancient inhabitants were actually very advanced and had an incredible knowledge of astronomy. Apparently, the city was designed as a complex structure, according to a preconceived and meticulously developed plan. It is oriented towards astronomical objects with extreme precision, with its 4 entrances strictly oriented towards the light. Between 1990 and 91, the famous Russian astroarchaeologist Konstantin Bystryshkin conducted research on Arkaim, analyzing it as an astronomical observatory of the Aryans. He assessed the city as an extremely complex astronomical structure, comparing its plan to that of the famous Stonehenge in England. Bystryshkin found that the inner circle, with a diameter of 275 feet, was actually a ring with 2 radii, 31 and 141 feet. The scientist concluded that Arkaim functioned as an observatory used for observations and measurements of sunrises and sunsets of the sun and moon. He noted that 18 astronomical events were probably recorded from there, 6 related to the sun and 12 to the moon. Interestingly, by this measure, Arkaim surpasses Stonehenge, where 15 events can be recorded. Moreover, Strushkin, using astroarchaeological methods, was able to establish a connection between certain parameters of Arkaim and the precession of the Earth's axis. With the help of astronomical calculations, the scientists came to the conclusion that the city is 1,000 years older than archaeologists believe. However, it turns out that Arkham also has a dark side that scares many people and makes them stay away from the structure. Anomaly Zone. After Strushkin made his discovery about the astronomical connection of the complex, the observed anomalies in its territory seemed to start looking much more logical. Or was the site for the construction of Arkaim precisely chosen as the creation of the plans for its construction? The chairman of the Russian Academy of Sciences Commission on the Culture of Ancient and Medieval Russia, Professor Valery Chudanov, explains.
There are at least two places that could be identified as Arkaim. The first, to call it conditional Arkaim, are the ruins that are currently accessible to tourists. The second Arkaim is further away, in an area where archaeological excavations are still ongoing and where the public has no access. But there is a third Arkaim, which is considered a restricted area that even locals inexplicably avoid.
What is this place that locals fear, and why? Not far from Arkaim is a grove that has gained a fearsome reputation. In this place, some unknown force has twisted the trunks of the birches at their very base. There are burn marks on the trees that resemble lightning strikes, as if this place had been used as a kind of battleground. If you meet any of the local people, they will warn you not to enter the forest under any circumstances, but to avoid it as far as possible. There are stories of people visiting this forest and then going mad. It is also rumored that the entire Arkaim is one of the strongest anomalous zones on the planet, a secret that gives scientists no rest. Some scientists suggest that Arkaim and the other settlements of the Land of Cities served as temporary ports of call for the Aryans during their long journey from their mythical homeland of Hyperborea. Archaeological findings show that no hostilities took place in Arkaim, and there are no traces of accidental fires or fallen meteorites. Its inhabitants left, taking all valuables and deliberately setting the city on fire. Their fate is reminiscent of that of the Maya, who also mysteriously abandoned their cities. According to one theory, the Mayans were forced to leave because of a prolonged drought, which may have been the Aryans' motive for leaving these lands. We have yet to learn much about this mystical ancient city and its vanished inhabitants. However, all this would not have been possible without the dedication of Professor Zdanovich, who saved the remains of the city to reveal to us one of the greatest archaeological discoveries the world has ever seen. But if you find the story of Arkaim interesting, then you haven't heard the one about Nan Madol, an ancient artificial island built with unexplained technology. Click the video on the screen now, and we'll be together again in a second.